This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Caroline Bargout. Brittany Greenslade is off tonight. Retail theft is an ongoing concern in the city, and one Canadian company is taking steps to tackle the issue by introducing body cameras for their employees. The company says it wants to enhance security, but one expert worries about the impacts on privacy. CBC's Mike Arsenault has that story.
You might be on camera the next time you go to Shoppers Drug Mart on Marion, a body camera being worn by the staff. John Lenossier is a regular patron at Shoppers and has seen his fair share of theft in recent years.
It's almost like every day somebody's trying to steal something in there. Just this week I was in there and somebody was trying to steal a 30-pack of batteries, which was worth about $30. So they got to do something because they're losing money like crazy.
Last month, Shoppers Drug Mart introduced a pilot project in effort to deal with theft and safety concerns. Now, some employees are wearing body cameras that record any situation that could be an issue. Loblaws, Shoppers Drug Mart's parent company, says participation is voluntary, and this will create a safer experience for customers and staff.
It's good for them, at least they have a picture of who's doing the stealing,
When I went to Shoppers Drug Mart, the employees were wearing cameras about the size of a cell phone around their necks. It appears that only cashiers are wearing them for now. Winnipeg police say they've already been to this Shoppers 12 times this year, which averages out to slightly more than once a week. Winnipeg police say there were 70 calls for service to Shoppers Drug Mart on Marion in 2024. Only 24 calls were made in 2023, but 70 calls were made in 2022 as well. Police say the majority of calls involved theft, while a handful were for robberies, property damage, and fraud. Anne Kavukian is a privacy expert. She says body cameras infringe on people's privacy.
A whole range of activities that you don't want captured on camera, then it's no one's business. You go in to buy something at a Shoppers Drug Mart or pick up a prescription or whatever, you don't expect to have your image captured.
In addition to the Shoppers Drug Mart on Marion Street, two other shoppers adopted the pilot project, one on Osborne Street and another on Main Street. Two superstore locations, one on Regent Avenue and another on McPhillip Street, are also putting body cameras on their employees.
It's just a big problem, that's all. Problem of our times, I think.
Loblaws says if the footage is not required for investigation, it is deleted as soon as possible. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The family of a young First Nations mother says she's still traumatized after an experience at the Thompson General Hospital, 1 month after what was supposed to be a routine ultrasound appointment. Her family and Kiwetanuk Ininu Minoyawin, an organization advocating for better health care in the north, are demanding change. CBC's Gavin Axelrod reports.
It was supposed to be a time of joy and excitement. Instead, it turned into a nightmare that we will never forget.
Lynn Albert can't forget the call she got from her daughter, Caitlin.
When I got a call from my daughter, she was heartbroken and in shock. She told me, "Mom, they said my baby isn't breathing."
Albert's mother-in-law, Dana Coates, says during that visit, Caitlin and her partner, Ethan Coates, were also yelled at. She says Coates wasn't allowed in the room during the ultrasound, and Albert was treated roughly during the test and belittled. Then
they received a call from the hospital telling them their baby wasn't breathing. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a moment of pure devastation for our entire family. Caitlin and Ethan were terrified. Our family was shattered.
They later found out the fetus was perfectly healthy, but the couple refused to return to the facility. The baby was eventually delivered in Winnipeg.
No family should have to grieve for a child who is still alive because of racism and neglect.
Dr. Barry Lavallee says he wants the Northern Health Region to be First Nations led.
This isn't about talking about racism to a system that is immune to the damage it does from one moment to the next.
In a statement to CBC News, Manitoba's Health Minister Uzoma Asagwera says they're looking into what happened and will determine next steps that need to be taken. They also say all Manitobans deserve respect and dignity when accessing care. The Northern Health Region says any patients with concerns should contact their patient experience department, and that provincial legislation bars them from talking about individual patient experiences. Gavin Axelrod, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Police have been cracking down on crime in Winnipeg's William White neighbourhood. This after a spike in violent crime in the area compared to last year.
These are the bullet holes here where they shot the door.
Daryl Warren is the head of the William White Residents Association. He's lived in the area for 65 years. Seeing a rise in crime is disappointing for him. In February, there were multiple homicides, assaults, and gun-related crimes. Between February 26th and March 9th, Winnipeg Police's Guns and Gangs unit increased its presence in the neighborhood. The initiative included traffic stops, spot checks, arrest warrants, and making sure bail conditions were followed. Police say they arrested 9 people. Warren says he's happy police are doing more to clamp down.
It's been a long time coming, and we need to step it up and keep it a constant pressure on these people, so these people will go ahead and move out of the area and do businesses elsewhere.
Warren hopes the initiative continues for the months ahead. Police are encouraging more people in the neighborhood to come forward with tips so they can find trouble spots. RCMP say a fire that destroyed a Carmen church is suspicious. The blaze started shortly after 4 a.m. Thursday morning at the Grace St. John's Anglican Lutheran Church. RCMP say no one was inside at the time. The cause of the fire hasn't been released, but police are asking anyone who may have video footage between the hours of 3:30 a.m. and 4:30 a.m. in the area to call investigators. The corner of Main Street and Sutherland may soon be transformed. It's been nearly 2 months since the historic Sutherland Hotel was destroyed by a fire, but a nonprofit housing society which bought the property still has big plans for it. CBC's Matt Humphrey explains.
Like a phoenix from the ashes, affordable housing and businesses could soon be where the Sutherland Hotel once stood. The Anhart Community Housing Society is developing the property despite the building's end in a dramatic fire. 140 years of history up in smoke. But the head of the BC-based nonprofit sees an opportunity.
It seems that we could have up to 100 affordable rental homes in that building with vibrant business on the main floor, maybe an educational center on the second floor.
A bold plan for renewal in an area no stranger to loss.
The area is not being maintained. The area is not a focus of our powers that be.
Myron Schultz has run his leather goods store for 29 years. He's seen the neighborhood go through changes.
Just behind us, we've lost 2 or 3 buildings, and on Main Street, another 3 buildings and a few down on Dufferin.
That's 35 years old.
Keith Horan runs the Northern Hotel and is president of the North Main Biz.
Well, it could mean a lot more people moving into the area, maybe some new businesses moving into the area.
And while Horan isn't the only one hoping for change, many are not optimistic.
I think the worst thing is this area would make it bad. Like Dufferin and Maine is like the worst place you could be hanging out.
Well, the people who walk here, like the homeless people and all that stuff, will it benefit them?
Every other neighborhood besides these neighborhoods, everything else gets patrolled, and then we do not.
The nonprofit bought the property for $475,000. They hope to partner with a local Winnipeg nonprofit to operate the site moving forward.
We think the partners will come into place as the plan gets more into focus.
While Anhart says restoring the Sutherland Hotel would have been ideal, what they have now is a blank slate to create something new. The organization takes possession of the property on June 1st. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Time now to take a look at the first look at weather with our CBC weather specialist, Riley Lachuk. Riley, I don't know why I have such a hard time spitting that out every time I throw to you. Much nicer day today. I would like more of this.
But you're not going to get more of it for now.
Lovely.
There's a lot to talk about tonight, Caroline. Starting with this line of showers, which has started to turn into some freezing rain south of the border. Really, we've had precipitation on the doorstep of Winnipeg really throughout the afternoon hours today. Still a lot of snow coming out of this cloud cover into northern Manitoba. This is prompting snowfall warnings along the Hudson Bay coast. And you can see just, how closely this system is grazing by Winnipeg. So remember when I was here yesterday and I was saying anything that falls in Winnipeg, likely sporadic and pretty isolated. Well, that did turn out to be true throughout the day today. And as I showed you, some of that turning into a little bit of freezing rain south of the border. So winter storm warning in place for northwestern Ontario, looking at up to 15 centimeters of snow by the time the night is done, maybe even up to a few millimeters of freezing rain. So lots to talk about tonight, along with this snowfall warning, up to 25 centimeters of snow possible along the Hudson Bay coast by the time we get to this time on Sunday. So -7 overnight in Winnipeg. Good chance we see a little bit of light snow, a dusting overnight, but notice the winds pick up as we get into the morning. Northwest 40, gusting to 60 Carolina. Much colder day tomorrow. Return to winter. I'll have more on that when I come back.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
Still to come, Manitoba doctor says the visa process to get to this country needs to be streamlined, especially since we have a shortage of health professionals. That story coming up after the break. A new Brandon doctor says the process to get to Canada needs to be streamlined. He says the current work permits don't reflect the urgent need for health professionals in communities. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has that story.
Dr. Mohammed Khan is getting ready to see patients, about 30 a day at the Brandon Clinic. Khan moved from the UK in January and says it was a roller coaster getting here. He wishes the visa process was smoother because the community desperately needs doctors.
It was a surprise for me. First day when I started my clinic, people had no family doctor for 6 years. 6 years. And they've been going for a same-day walk-in, waiting to see a doctor for 3 hours.
Khan is one of 39 doctors at Brandon Clinic. The CEO says they need to recruit about 10 more to meet the demands of the growing city. He says the recruitment process costs around $10,000 a doctor. If they do find someone overseas, it can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months to get them working, because they can only move as fast as the paperwork. A major part of recruitment is the labor market impact assessment, an application to the federal government done by a company looking to hire someone from outside of Canada because they can't fill the job locally.
I think the LMIA is an unnecessary evil at this time. Everyone in the world knows there's a physician shortage no matter where you are.
Doctors Manitoba says the province needs 375 to 400 more physicians. In Westman, Prairie Mountain Health needs to recruit around 40 to 45 doctors to fill gaps. In the last year, they've recruited 32 physicians, many of them foreign trained. A Brandon immigration consultant says labor market impact assessments have tight deadlines, get expensive, and lack flexibility when a doctor is trying to immigrate.
I would change the open work permit component so that the physician can work if they work in a clinic and there's a hospital in the same economic region, that they can work there as well. That would be a big practical solution.
Khan says he's hoping to see changes that make the move to Canada easier for others, so patients have better access to family physicians.
And the typical question about every patient is that, how long you're going to stay here.
Khan plans on making Brandon his family's home. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
Homeowners in at least 4 of Winnipeg's 6 English school divisions will be paying more in property taxes. The Louis Riel, St. James Assiniboia, Seven Oaks, and Winnipeg school divisions have passed their budgets for the upcoming school year. To raise funds for growing operation expenses, the school divisions are hiking the tax levied to homeowners. The increases vary from one division to the other, and one of the highest so far is coming out of the St. James Assiniboia School Division. Average property owners there will pay about $110 more in taxes annually. This is the second budget cycle in a row where Manitoba's NDP government has allowed school divisions to raise taxes. The PCs have criticized the move, saying the hikes reflect a mismanagement of provincial funding. The last of the gray wolves at the Assiniboine Park Zoo has died. The zoo announced yesterday over social media that Bear passed away. He was 15 years old, which the zoo says is at the high end of life expectancy for gray wolves. Earlier this week, staff had noticed he was lame. It was determined his leg was broken. The zoo says it was decided, given the age and other conditions, it was more humane to euthanize him. Bear came to the zoo in 2014 and was part of a pack of 5 wolves. 9 Manitobans are among the 90 Canadian athletes currently competing at the Special Olympics World Winter Games, which are on in Turin, Italy. They'll be bringing home multiple medals, including 2 silver in cross-country skiing for Winnipegger Britta Hall. CBC's Sabina Ahmed spoke to Hall and coach Sean Jess from Turin today via Zoom.
Excited that I'm out here and ski.
A proud moment for Manitoba as Winnipegger Britta Hall won 2 silver medals in cross-country skiing. Hall won the medals in the 5K and another in the 7.5K free technique. Sean Jess is coaching her at the games.
Coaching Britta has been great. She's actually put a lot of work, and a lot of credit goes to her training coach back in Winnipeg.
Yeah,
Chris Rowe, who's done a lot of work with her. And then, of course, we've had training camps and everything. She works really hard. And she not only skis, she does other things in the off season to stay in shape. And she was able to bring her her best to these games.
With Hall's 2 silvers, Manitoba has won 11 medals so far, including gold medals for skier Dylan Collins and snowshoers Alec Baldwin and Harry Burns.
A really good team. We actually have, especially like Rita is definitely one of the upbeat firecrackers on our team. Kind of raises the level of excitement, but we have a good team. They've gelled really well.
Hall has a shot at a third medal tomorrow when she competes in a relay. Win or lose, she's excited to return with her medals.
Can't wait to go home to Winnipeg and see my training coach.
The Special Olympics World Winter Games wrap up on Sunday. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Congrats to her.
Oh, yeah, so I thought you were saying to me. I'm like, what did I do besides nothing in my life? CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk is here with some weather.
Yes.
So lots of weather this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed because I look forward to every weekend, as probably most people do.
Okay.
And now you're just crushing my soul.
It's going to be windy, some freezing rain for some of us, a lot of snow for others. I want to start with a picture, though, before we get into it. This was sent to me from Kim in Cranberry Portage. Look at all of the snow that parts of northern Manitoba have gotten over the course of the winter. And yes, this is Mount Snow Begone, she is saying. So thank you, Kim, for sending this picture. And you can always send your weather pics to talkback@cbc.ca. Look forward to seeing what your corner of Manitoba looks like, even if it does look like this in mid-March. We are, Kim, looking at snow tapering off in your neck of the woods as we get through the weekend. For others, though, particularly Thompson into Gillam and the Hudson Bay coast, looking at some accumulating snow over the weekend. The result of this Alberta Clipper, and as this cold front along with it moves into the Red River Valley, this is where we have that chance overnight into the early morning hours tomorrow, I think. A fairly good chance of at least seeing a dusting here in Winnipeg. You can't really tell. This model isn't depicting it that well, but I think as this cold front sweeps through, we'll see some of that overnight tonight in Winnipeg. Back to the east, the models have been shifting this area of low pressure a little bit further east once again. So places like Kenora into Fort Frances overnight, looking at some freezing rain. And before this cold front sweeps through, more of a rain event into places like Dryden, into even Fort Frances early in the morning tomorrow. That does all transition to snow as this cold front pushes through. Behind that, some very, very windy conditions, really for the Red River Valley and most of the Interlake as we get through the day on Saturday. Those winds do start to back off on Sunday, and we are looking at a bit of sun returning into Sunday. I think this model is underestimating some of the cloud cover a little bit. Some high pressure wants to move in, but I think we'll stay in the cloud cover as we get through Sunday. And then there's one more thing I'm watching as we get into next week. Another round of instability working its way along the international border. This looks like it will bring us some periods of snow, really for anywhere south of the Trans-Canada Highway as we head into the day on Monday. So snow to come for the weekend, another 20 centimeters for Thompson. Looking at even the potential for up to 25 or even more for the Hudson Bay coast, and up to 10 centimeters in parts of northwestern Ontario. The winds, the other story for us here in the Red River Valley, looking at gusts as we get into the day on Saturday, up to 60 kilometers an hour, and staying strong as we get really into the next several days here. We are looking at a colder day tomorrow here in Winnipeg, and Caroline, things do start to warm up once again as we get into next week.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome.
A bit of a gray day across parts of the province. We'll have more to come right after this. Stay with us. Canada has a new Prime Minister. Mark Carney and a somewhat smaller cabinet have been sworn in at Rideau Hall. As CBC's David Thurton reports, Carney is promising action from day one.
Prime Minister Mark Carney arriving at Rideau Hall, ready to usher in a new political era.
That I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trust reposed in me as Prime Minister.
Just days after becoming Liberal leader, Carney isn't wasting time filling his cabinet with mostly familiar faces. François-Philippe Champagne is Finance Minister. Key ministers in the tariff war, Jonathan Wilkinson and David McGuinty, keep their old jobs along with Melanie Joly away at G7 meetings, while Dominic LeBlanc now focuses on the relationship with the U.S. and premiers.
We have new ministers with new ideas, ready to respond to new threats and to seize new opportunities.
Carney's team is smaller, 24 ministers instead of 37, fewer women than men. Immediately confronting the new cabinet, a trade war and U.S. annexation threats.
We will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada.
After the formalities, it was straight to work.
I have already met with my deputy minister at ISED, and I have instructed him to prepare a letter that will be going to our suppliers to buy Canadian.
It is a privilege to serve in cabinet. Right now, all of us need to be focused on helping our new Prime Minister, Prime Minister Carney, lead our country.
On his first day, the new PM did need help.
Sir.
On the way to his first cabinet meeting.
Before I have to get, I'm lost. Just to be able to do that.
What are your first priorities?
First priorities, we're going to deal with the carbon tax.
The Conservative leader cast doubt on that.
This is the carbon tax law. It's in place today. Until Parliament is recalled, this carbon tax law will be the law of the land.
While carbon pricing is still the law of the land, Carney signed an order ending the collection of the consumer levy.
We will be eliminating the Canada fuel charge, the consumer fuel charge, immediately.
It's unlikely that Parliament will be recalled to change the law. Sources say Carney will be triggering an election this month, sending Canadians to the polls either in late April or May. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
One Manitoba MP has a spot in the new Prime Minister's cabinet. Winnipeg South Liberal Representative Terry Duguid is now Minister of Environment and Climate Change. He moves to the role after Justin Trudeau appointed him Minister of Sport and Minister responsible for Prairies Economic Development Canada in December. He is the only member from our province to be appointed to Mark Carney's cabinet. At the end of the G7 Foreign Affairs meeting in Quebec, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio doubled down on his government's threat to annex Canada. Speaking on Canadian soil, he said Trump's position reflects a disagreement with Canada's position. Kate McKenna has the details.
During his visit to Canada, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended suggestions from his president to annex Canada. He downplayed the threat to Canadian sovereignty by saying that it's a disagreement between two governments.
The president has made his argument as to why he thinks Canada would be better off joining the United States for economic purposes. There's a disagreement between the president's position and the position of the Canadian government. I don't think that's a mystery coming in, and it wasn't a topic of conversation because that's not what the summit was about.
But annexing Canada is more than a disagreement, according to Canada's foreign minister.
What I said to the secretary is Canada's sovereignty is not up to debate, period. There's no argument, there's no conversation about it, there's no need to talk about it. You're here, you respect us, you respect our sovereignty, you're in our country, you respect our people, period.
It's crazy. His point is crazy. That's it. We will never, ever, in any way, shape, or form, be part of the United States. America is not Canada.
Germany and the UK came out in support of Canadian sovereignty.
Your country stands together. Canada's unity inspires us. We Europeans, we Germans, and Canada are not only partners, we are close friends. And friends have each other's back. always.
I recognise that there has been anxiety here in Canada at this time. How could I not with Canadian family? But I'm absolutely clear that Canada will remain and continue to be a proud sovereign nation.
But the Italian foreign minister said standing up for Canada is not his job.
But for me, Canada will be Canada over the next years. This is not the problem between Italy and America, problem between Italy and Canada, but it's not my job.
Despite this, Melanie Joly says it was a good meeting, with foreign ministers unanimously agreeing to support a U.S.-brokered ceasefire proposal in Ukraine. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Lamel Bay, Quebec.
In Europe, outrage is growing over the latest tariff threat issued by Donald Trump. A 200% import levy on wine, champagne, and other alcohol imports from the EU, if it goes forward with a planned tariff on American whiskey. Anna Cunningham has the latest from London.
Europe sends close to $5 billion worth of wine each year to the US. Now, in France, there is pride in their heritage of producing wine and champagne. But this very suggestion from President Donald Trump that he is prepared to hit the EU with a 200% tariff has created anger and disbelief. The French Prime Minister François Bayrou says the US is threatening to obliterate the wine industry and that EU countries will not yield to the threats. President Trump says it would be in retaliation for the bloc's planned levies on American-made whiskey, which are themselves in retaliation for US tariffs on steel and aluminum. There is certainly deep concern in the European wine and liquor industry.
We really want to say to policymakers in the EU and in the US, enough is enough. We're done being used as bargaining chips. We want to get out of these unrelated disputes, and we really, really want to go back to tariff-free transatlantic trade in spirits.
President Trump has made his views on the EU clear.
I'm not happy with the European Union, I want to tell you. And,
will you put tariffs on
we're
cars?
going to win that. We're going to win that financial battle.
In France, we know that independent winemakers represent 60% of the country's wine production, but it's not just France that is angry about this. Spain, Italy and Portugal are all big wine exporters. The French Finance Minister, Éric Lombard, has labelled this escalating US-EU trade war as idiotic. He's planning to visit Washington soon, and he says he's hopeful negotiations with the US will be open. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Some terrifying moments aboard an American Airlines flight that caught fire on the ground at the airport in Denver.
We landed and it was fine, everything was fine, but then the minute we landed it was like smoke started filling the cabin and people started kind of screaming and pushing and jumping up and yelling.
The plane carrying 172 passengers and 6 crew was flying from Colorado Springs to Dallas-Fort Worth yesterday. Engine problems forced an emergency landing in Denver. The engine burst into flames while taxiing to the gate. Everyone got out alive, but some passengers were trapped for a time on the wing as smoke billowed around them. 12 people were taken to hospital with minor injuries. The FAA is investigating the cause. It was a heist that made international headlines, and now the man accused of stealing one of the world's most famous portraits from Ottawa's Chateau Laurier Hotel is admitting guilt in the crime. CBC's Paul Hunter has that story.
The mystery of the theft of the Roaring Lion now all but sorted. In this Ottawa courthouse today, said the man accused in one of the most notorious art heists in Canadian history, "I'm guilty, Your Honor."
Mr. Wood, you have anything to say before the hearing? Let's leave this start, but thank you.
But Jeffrey Wood said plenty in the courtroom today, the Ontario man apologizing profusely for his crime and explaining he needed the money to help his brother, suffering deep mental illness. The theft, stealing an original print of Yusuf Karsh's 1941 photo of former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, stolen from its place on the walls of the Fairmont Chateau Laurier Hotel in Ottawa more than 3 years ago, replaced on the wall by a fake, which went unnoticed for months until a hotel employee realized what had happened. The theft sparked global headlines and a hunt by Ottawa police spanning 2 continents. before its recovery last fall in Italy, having been bought by a collector at auction in the UK. At Woods' hearing today in Ottawa, he pled guilty to 3 charges: theft, forgery, and trafficking stolen goods, with fresh details now coming to light.
This is the evidence?
This is the evidence that was recovered from the scene.
That police found DNA on duct tape attached to the fake Churchill, found to match Woods' DNA found on a toothbrush obtained in a search warrant. The court also heard that Woods likely was planning the heist for months beforehand, and that the path taken by the portrait after it had been stolen likely went from Canada through Mexico and then on to London. How are you feeling, madame?
Very good. Today's the day.
Hotel General Manager Geneviève Dumas was among the witnesses called by the Crown. She told the court she deems the portrait irreplaceable. But Woods' lawyer, Edward Greenspan, suggested to the court, when you boil it all down, it's just a print of a photo made from a negative. Woods' lawyer is arguing for a suspended sentence. The Crown wants 2 years less a day in custody. A decision on the sentence is expected in the coming weeks. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Ottawa.
Coming up, the parents of a 15-year-old girl who was lit on fire at a Saskatoon high school want answers. They say they feared for their daughter's safety before the incident. We'll bring you that story right after the break. Back on 3. The parents of a 15-year-old girl who was lit on fire at a Saskatoon high school want answers. They say they feared for their daughter's safety before the incident. And as Dan Zakreski reports, they say both police and the school had multiple warnings and a caution. Some of the details in the story are distressing.
They're best friends, and they were both harassed and threatened for months. One was lit on fire at school.
Before we changed phone numbers, the last message was, "I'm going to make your life at school a living hell. Answer me."
The teen got burns to 40% of her body when she was lit on fire on the second day of grade 10. We're not naming the teen or her parents because she's a youth victim of crime. The teen first went to her mom when school broke for the summer.
She showed me her phone and said that she'd been getting these text messages from someone from Evan Hardy that she didn't know very well, that she kind of backed away from and politely asked her to step back.
CBC has reviewed the dated and time-stamped texts. The girl's best friend was also getting threats, so both mums and both teens got together.
On this day, things were escalating very quickly. A text was received that said you should slit your wrists and kill yourself. So we blocked everything. That's done. This is not playtime.
The very next day, both parents went to the police station and filed reports. They also contacted the Evan Hardy principal. The parents say things calmed down for about a month. We know now that the accused spent part of the summer in a psychiatric unit. But by August, the threats started again, this time coming from a series of different phone numbers. The parents say they were worried enough that they went back to the police and met with the school principal.
We said we were very concerned about this person harassing our daughter and her friends, and we want to make sure that they are kept separated.
The girl was supposed to be assessed every morning at school and have her backpack checked. That day, she was deemed mentally unfit for school and was being escorted out. And yet somehow, the 15-year-old victim was lit on fire.
And it hurt so much. And one of the teachers, I think it was the assistant principal or something, they said they knew something like this would happen soon. And I just thought it was so stupid that they would say something like that right in front of me after it just happened.
Saskatoon Public Schools does not want to talk to CBC about the parents' questions. It says it won't be publicly discussing its safety plan, its own investigation, or any changes made to policy because of the attack. But it did reply by email that since the attack, it's introduced an anonymous safety reporting tool, enhanced the documentation process for students showing concerning behavior, added new training for school administrators. It also asked for an independent review of what happened, but it didn't say when that would be done or who would get to see it. As for the police, they say they work with the school division on threat assessments, but they won't comment on this matter while it's before the courts. As the injured girl slowly recovers, her dad says they just want to know what happened and be certain it won't happen again.
Obviously, the worst case scenario happened with our daughter. We want to ensure that when our child goes to school, or any child goes to school, that it's the safest place for them to be.
The teen was charged with attempted murder, arson, and aggravated assault. She'll be back here in court in July. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
And CBC weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now for our next look at weather. What do you got? Besides bad news, bad weather, bad weekend.
You know, we will be entering spring in the next week.
Yes.
So there's something to look forward to. Feline Fridays, also something to look forward to. Let's have a look at our friend of the evening here for Saturday. Scooter and Wiley. Thank you, Frank, for sending these pictures in. You can keep yours coming to talkback@cbc.ca. I've got a lot of cat photos to get through. So please keep sending your dogs to me as well, because we'll need those in the coming week as well. -10 first thing in the morning. Once that cold front sweeps through overnight tonight, we are looking at our winds picking up quite considerably in the Red River Valley. But also our temperatures well below seasonal for this time of the year. Getting to -6 tomorrow afternoon. Things in the long range do look up from there, but do expect a cold and windy day, kind of miserable with the northwesterly wind tomorrow. And temperatures really hanging around -7 throughout the day for your Saturday. Looking at temperatures across the province, -4s for both Brandon and Melita. Bit of a light snow into the Parkland once again and into the southwest corner of the province. And you can see where that cold front has started to slide through central Manitoba. Portage at -3, 0 in Winnipeg, and you can see that transition over to some freezing rain in the Morden-Winkler region. But still, 10s and 12s into northwestern Ontario. Once that cold front slides through, we'll really see our temperatures falling. -17 overnight in Swan River, -14 in Dauphin, -13s into Westman tonight. Maybe a few flurries yet to come into Westman. And then we get into that risk of freezing rain into eastern Manitoba, and overnight temperatures staying above the freezing mark even in some cases in places like Dryden, where we'll likely see some rain before that shifts over to snow as we get through the day on Saturday. -16s, -17s through Flin Flon and the Paw. Thompson, Gillam, Shamattawa looking at 10 centimeters of snow overnight tonight. As we get through the day on Saturday, looking at 10 to 15 centimeters in parts of northern Manitoba throughout the day tomorrow. Temperatures barely getting above -10 for most of us in the south tomorrow. -7 in Brandon. Winds northwest 35 to 40 through the west tomorrow. Looking at sustained winds 40 to even 60 in places like Emerson, with some gusting on top of that. Temperatures around -6 in Winnipeg tomorrow, and that freezing rain transitioning over to snow in parts of northwestern Ontario by the time we get into the later afternoon hours. Into the day for your Sunday, looking at temperatures rebounding a bit, but still staying below seasonal for this time of the year. Well, there might be snow on the ground still, but soon gardens will be blooming.
And for those getting antsy at Manitoba Garden Centre, look at that. We match. Garden Centre has some advice on how to get started planting indoors. Shanna Lee Vidal brings us that story.
Spring is well on its way. That means gardeners will soon be digging green thumbs into the soil. I'm Shanna Lee Vidal, and I stopped by a Manitoba greenhouse to get some gardening tips.
My name is Caitlin Wickdahl. I am the events coordinator here at Chalmerdine Garden Centre. Everybody's excited. They all want color now. They want to get outside in their garden, get their hands dirty. The easiest seeds to start are lettuce and carrots because they germinate almost within a week or two, and they're super easy to grow. You can put them anywhere, and just in a sunny spot, you just sprinkle them on and keep them moist, and then you get lettuce just to eat all throughout the summer.
Some people might have seeds left over from last year or the year before. Can they still use those? Are those seeds still good, or should they be getting fresh seeds?
So ideally you're getting fresh seeds, but your seed packet will have an expiry date on it as well. So you can always check that. But my rule is just kind of give it a try. Why not stick them in, see what comes up? Definitely people are leaning towards growing their own food. That's been a big trend ever since COVID, really. So again, starting seeds is a great thing. We have lots of citrus plants.
So this is maybe, what, 4 feet high?
About that,
yeah. How big can they grow?
So they will eventually grow, I mean, they could grow 20 feet, but in your house it's probably only going to grow 6 or 7, and you can just keep pruning it to keep that height down so it's not, you know, touching your ceiling.
It's just spilling over with lemons.
Yes, yeah, it's very exciting. And sometimes people have no idea that they can do this here, but definitely it's possible. We have avocado trees, olive trees, fig trees, and we even got these really cool mulberry trees in. It came in and was just a whole bunch of sticks with no leaves at all, and it was all wrapped up. And then once we unwrapped it and brought it into the nice warm heat of the greenhouse, it foliated completely, and now it's even blooming and we're getting berries on it. So just something unique that you could have in the house outside for the summertime and then bring back in for the winter, as long as you have a really good sunny spot for it. Right now, it doesn't look busy up front here, but behind the scenes, we're super, super busy planting over 100,000 annual plants for everybody to buy.
So these are the babies?
Yes, so right now on our left is the hostas. So those are perennial plants that we're actually starting. So we'll be able to grow them and have them in our perennial greenhouse. And then a lot of our hanging baskets are here. So we have geraniums starting. Geraniums, for instance, are super easy as an annual, and all they require is a little bit of deadheading every once in a while. So they're really little. These are how we get them in, just a little tiny plug. And this little plant will actually end up being 10 to 12 inches tall and nice and bushy. The biggest misconception with plants and flowers is that they take a lot of work. Most plants will do better if you ignore them a bit more. They don't like too much water. They don't like too much attention.
It's expected that garden centers are going to be pretty busy starting in May with Mother's Day weekend and, of course, May long weekend. Shanley Vidal, CBC News, Headingley.
Still ahead, a BC church is organizing a Centennial celebration for a beloved instrument. That's up next. Stay with us.
All right, so expect the further east you are in the province, some showers through the evening hours, transitioning to potentially some freezing rain before we get that into snow. So in the White Shell, looking at some rain showers right now, but back to the west, along Highway 75, you're even looking at that transition happening over to some freezing rain. So we're looking at potentially some icy conditions the further east you go into northwestern Ontario. Very windy tomorrow. We get to -6 in the afternoon with northwest winds gusting up to 60. Then it looks better from there. -5 for Sunday, up to 0 for Monday with some periods of snow. -3s and -2s to start the week. Caroline, spring starts on Thursday, and we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds and -1. Well, an old instrument in BC's Okanagan is celebrating a big milestone this year.
For 100 years, Kelowna residents have had the chance to enjoy the sounds of a pipe organ. Sonia LaRoche brings us the Daily Lift.
It's a special year for the Central Okanagan United Church in downtown Kelowna. The church's centerpiece, a pipe organ, is turning 100 years this year.
I used to say that this is about the closest I get to dancing when I'm playing the organ. A lot of people don't prefer, they think the organ's for funerals. I'm out to prove that that's not the case.
For Sandra Fletcher, a century of history inspires her moment by moment.
There's a feel of accomplishment. There's a big challenge in playing the pipe organ.
The initiative to build a pipe organ came just after the First World War.
100 years ago, a bunch of women in this congregation decided that they wanted to gift the church with a pipe organ. And so they raised the funds.
It was a big project with estimated more than 800 pipes, some made of metal and some of wood, and the keys on the organ console made of ivory.
Once I start playing, the sound will fill the church. Even the soft sounds can be heard throughout this sanctuary.
After a century, the organ music still lives on in the Okanagan. Sonia LaRoche, CBC News, Kelowna.
I do not have the hand-eye coordination for that.
No.
I can play instruments.
Can you?
not
What do you play?
So I can play saxophone. I've played trumpet before, clarinet. I played piano for years.
Oh my God. I play nothing. Not skilled in anything.
Hey, you did a great job tonight.
I'm kidding. Thanks for having me. Brittany will be back on Monday with Riley.
Have a great weekend.
What camera are we looking at?